Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Right Place, Right Time, a not too woo woo podcast where I unpack curveballs and plot twists that Mama Uni has thrown at me for character development. My name is Betty, your host, and we've made it to episode 5. I'm so excited to share yet another episode with you guys. This one is talking about being compassionate to other people. I'm naming this episode, I started giving myself the same compassion I give to others because growing up, I always felt that I needed to have tough skin in order to be strong, quote unquote. But truly, I was always softer. And I think it comes back to just being a natural empath. I always felt like I absorbed people's energies and felt compassionate towards them. But then I conditioned myself to think that being soft in that way meant I was weak. And it wasn't until I started going to therapy that I started unpacking all of these layers and traits of mine that I realized that it is actually a strength to have compassion towards others. Being kind doesn't cost anything, and we truly have the choice to leave an imprint on people, a positive or a negative one. I've always been the type of person that's wanted to make people feel understood and leave some kind of good or positive energy with them. I think our energy is the most valuable currency that we have, and we can choose to use it in a positive way. Even though I've been through so much, and even though I have been let down by certain situations or people, I still want to show up in a way that makes people feel seen and heard and understood because I truly crave that with myself. Through therapy, I learned that I was lacking compassion for myself and I wasn't showing up for myself the same way that I would show up for others. Just in the same way that we choose to be kind to others, we have the choice to be kind to ourselves. We deserve that compassion. Always get asked, like, what's the number one attribute in people that you look for? And it's truly kindness. I love somebody who can be kind regardless of what they're going through. People will always remember how you made them feel over what you said or what you did. And I'll give you guys an example that I've been through where people have been extremely compassionate with me that has truly shifted the way that I perceive other people. Really profound moment in my life at that time, and I still talk about it and remember it till this day, was when I was on my way to a marketing networking event. It was part of my class in college. I had just came home from studying abroad. So one, I was jet lagged. Two, I was just trying to get back on my feet with work and finances. And I was already running late to this marketing event. It was at Behr Paint Company. And the goal was really to like network and try to land an internship for the semester. On my way there, because I was rushing and distracted, I sideswiped a Lexus on the freeway. So, of course, we pulled over and exchanged information, and I got to talking to the man that I hit. And he was this older man who let me know that he had two daughters who were going to the same college as I was. And he was more interested in where I was going and what I was up to. And he let me go so I can make it to my event. On my way to my event, I actually had this moment where I wanted to just, clam up, turn around, go home, and not even go because I was so bummed out that I sideswiped a car, especially financially at that time. I was like, how am I going to afford this? But instead of letting it overcome me and consume me, I actually thought to myself, okay, this is a really bad and shitty situation, but it doesn't take away from what you want to accomplish right now. So show up in the best way you know how. This happens for a reason. We don't know why, but just do your best. And funny enough, I was able to kind of brush it off for the time being. So when I went to the event, I actually got offered an internship basically on the spot, which was pretty rare, but I somehow turned that pain into purpose and I went in with a good attitude and clearly it worked. But then I was texting with the guy and he let me know that it was a lease and he's like, hey, I think it's better if you just pay me a few $100s and we call it even. We don't need to go through insurance. it's not that big of a deal. And I thought that was really kind of him. Like, he didn't have to do that. I think I asked for like a 6-month payment plan and he was really cool about it. I would pay it every week. I would send him money. And then I remember the last payment that I was going to make, I was so excited because I was going to be done with this. It was going to be behind me. I didn't have to worry about it anymore. And so I was really excited to send him that last payment. I actually have the text thread pulled up. I said, hey, so and so just sent you the last money. Thanks for being patient. And he said, thank you for being a class act and so responsible. Your parents should be proud. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. And sorry again about your car. And I remember the next morning I woke up and I got a text from my Zelle saying that the person I hit had just deposited the full amount that I basically paid him into my account. And I was so confused. I was like, surely this is a mistake and I don't know what's going on. So I'm going to text him. So I did. And I was like, hey, I don't know what happened, but it says that you deposited the entire amount into my bank account. Just wanted to let you know. And I will never forget this. And honestly, it kind of makes me emotional right now because it truly just shows that people can be so kind and compassionate. He said, because you are a good kid and proved you are responsible, you could use the money more than I need to detail my car. It was an accident and you are not a jerk. It's the right thing. More importantly, when the time comes and you are in a good place in your life, you will do the right thing for someone else. Best to you. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, he has no idea how much that money meant to me back then. I mean, I think he did. Obviously, he said I needed it more, but like truly, he didn't know how much that meant to me in that time. And I will never forget that feeling. I was so grateful and so thankful. He saw obviously that I was a struggling college student just trying to make my way, and he felt inclined to help me. So shout out to that man who I hit on the 405 freeway on my way to my marketing event. It's little things like that where I just know that I am protected. We are all protected if we put good energy out into the universe and we're kind and genuine and mean well and lead with integrity, that there will be times and ways where things will come around and show up for us in the way that we need them. And that was one of those moments. The difference between having empathy and having compassion. Compassion is choosing to have grace for people, even when you don't know what they're going through or I don't understand it. The very least is having that grace and showing them that, you're here for them. And you can be a soundboard or you can be someone to be there if they need anything. I don't like to judge people based on their actions because sometimes people's actions are very different than their intentions. And as someone who's often felt misunderstood, I learned a lot about being compassionate through that. The way that I show compassion for others is really just letting them be where they are without any expectation or without really trying to understand really where it's coming from. Just knowing that they're in a certain phase or they're in a certain wavelength of their life, and the best thing I can do is sit and listen and let them feel seen and understood. I'm also someone who doesn't feel the need to fix anything for people anymore. I think before I would always try to impose, everything I've learned in therapy and just through my own experiences. I still tend to do that, but in a more reflective manner where I share experiences that are similar to what people are going through and how I navigated it and the lessons and the learnings that I went through. But I don't have an expectation or I don't place judgment on that. Where I felt misunderstood a lot is that whenever I would go through situations or handle things in a specific manner, I felt that people would judge me or wanted me to do things differently, even though I was still trying to figure out my own way. And it created a lot of anxiety for me. And I think that's where I started losing the compassion for myself and the grace for myself, because in my head, I was thinking, well, why can't I show up in the way that people expect me to? And why do I always feel misunderstood? And why do I always feel judged? And I think now the way that I look at things is that I'm allowed to figure things out in the same way that everyone else is. And so if I come across a situation where I don't have the answers or I'm not fully equipped for that phase of my life, instead of internalizing it and feeling like I could do better, I just tell myself, this is fine and you're going to get through it. And like, for example, I skipped a week with my podcast, even though I wanted to do this weekly, and I went into hermit mode, not to hide, but really to recharge, because I tend to do that from time to time. But instead of being harsh with myself and saying things like, you are a failure, or you didn't keep up with your schedule, or you're letting yourself down, I allowed myself to have a week off and listen to my body. Again, why wouldn't I give myself that same compassion that I give to others? Like if someone was to come up to me and say, I'm having such an off week with my content and I'm not really sure what to post and I don't feel like I can keep up with my daily posting schedule. Yeah, give yourself that grace. It's okay to feel out of touch and get in a funk, and then just come right back and rise to the occasion whenever you do feel ready. And so why wouldn't I say those same words to myself? And that's where I'm choosing to give myself the same compassion I give to others. I don't want to judge myself for not being perfect, because perfection doesn't exist. And so we're allowed to have off weeks. We're allowed to have off moments. We're allowed to have off days. And as long as we're not using other people as punching bags, or we're not internalizing it and then projecting it onto others, that's where the boundaries come in. And that's where being an empath is tricky, right? Because then we do absorb those energies. But as long as we're not doing that, we are allowed to have compassion for ourselves for having off times and off weeks. If I'm being honest with myself, I think before, the reason I didn't have compassion towards myself personally is because I didn't trust myself enough to know that I would rise up to the occasion and I would persevere and push forward no matter what. And so I had this really strict expectation on myself of, you have to follow the schedule, you have to follow the routine, you have to follow the structure. Not having that growing up, you've worked so hard to get to this place, so why would you give it up now? I realized that I do trust myself, because I have done a lot of scary shit in my life, and I've taken so many leaps of faith where I've had no choice but to figure it out, and I always have. And so why wouldn't I trust myself and at the same time give myself compassion to rest and regroup and come back even stronger? This last year for me has probably been one of the most transformative ones in my life, even though I've gone through a lot of things, but it really has been one where I have shed so much skin and had to rise from the ashes time and time again. And what's really helped me get through all of that is having compassion for myself and not being harsh on myself or having false expectations. Healing journeys are ongoing. I have a conversation often with my friends about how being on your healing journey doesn't necessarily mean you're this reborn person. It just means you're a newer version of yourself that has the necessary and right tools to navigate those situations if they do present themselves again. And it comes back to my metaphorical toolbox. I've worked really hard to collect all of these different tools so that I know how to navigate all of my triggers, my vulnerabilities, and my emotions. I've successfully been able to shift my mindset from being judgmental on myself and negative self-talk and not having compassion and having too much empathy for others and not having boundaries to now feeling protected and safe. I've recently been learning about the feeling of belonging within ourselves, and the opposite of feeling belonging is wanting to fit in. And I think that puts things into perspective for me, at least. I've always been someone who's wanted nothing more but to feel understood and seen. But I realize now that it was because I didn't feel 100% comfortable and I wasn't in a sense of belonging with myself. And now I don't need that validation from others. I don't need that reassurance. I can give it to myself because I have done the work and I know that I show up in a way that is morally aligned with my values. And I have my boundaries to protect myself from the things that have hurt me in the past or that I have internalized in the past. I have a term in my head that comes up a lot, which is flirting with myself or flirting with life. Anytime I start to steer off the path of feeling like I belong with myself or that I am craving validation, I start to flirt with the idea of life and myself, to not think about the future too much and also not dwell on the past, because dwelling on the past is where depression manifests, and then looking ahead in the future is where anxiety manifests. And I think it's good to have goals and set, yourself up for success, but truly living in the present moment. I know it's harder and harder now with social media and everything going on in the world, but it's really helped me find a sense of comfort and joy. Positive affirmations work for a reason. I truly believe in them now. I even started meditating and I'm doing the shadow work journal. It's helping me tap into why I think the way that I think and discover more things about myself. I've even started journaling more and more throughout these last few years because while you journal, you start to realize why you think the way you think and where it comes from. And a lot of the times we don't really take the step back to analyze those things. We're just on the go. We're on this hustle mentality and we're constantly in survival mode. But when you allow yourself to reflect and take the temperature of yourself and of what's going on around you, you get this opportunity to open this new space within yourself that taps into the why. The why am I feeling this way? Why do I think this way? Where is it coming from? Opening that box means feeling vulnerable or experiencing emotions that either we don't have time for or we don't know how to navigate. Right now, I'm in a phase where I want to feel joy and I want to be happy. Why is it so hard for me to receive joy without feeling guilty or shame or like I don't deserve it? I feel my body react anytime I open myself up to receiving this feeling, this emotion. But I'm so aware of it, and that's the beauty of going to therapy or doing shadow work or journaling or meditating, is that you start to learn awareness about these emotions. Again, it's not like you're going to fully heal this. It probably will always be with you, but the awareness will heighten, which means you will at least catch it while it's happening, and so that you can intersect it and think to yourself, wait, I'm doing this again. Let me not push away joy and let me receive it instead. And just like anything else, it's a muscle you build. So the more you do it, the easier it gets. I'm naturally a more emotional person just by nature, but I do have my grounded side and I can be rational when I try. But lately, I've been trying to pay attention to how I react to things, whether it's coming from a logical standpoint or an emotional standpoint. And especially when I'm under the influence of anxiety, anxiety tends to alter your emotions and how you react to things without you even knowing or without even feeling it. Good rule of thumb for me on where my reaction is coming from is what trigger is it triggering? Like, for example, when you think of like trust, right? If you feel like you can't trust somebody, is it because of their actions and what they're doing and what they're showing you? Or is it because you've been let down before and have learned to not trust people right away and their intentions? Something that my therapist taught me is to always lean into the facts, and that is so hard to do when you've been let down or your trust has been jeopardized. But if the facts point to you can trust somebody, at least for the time being until they prove you otherwise, why not lean into that? Coming right back to compassion, I give myself compassion every time and I say, I'm sorry that you've been through that. And I'm sorry that someone, took advantage of your trust. didn't deserve that. And you are safe and you can trust until the facts show otherwise. I tend to get into this masculine energy where I harden myself and I guard myself and I get protective of my energy. I don't want people to take advantage of it. And somehow I feel like I'm protecting myself. But really what I'm doing is I'm neglecting a side of myself that is allowed to feel joy and vulnerable and experience things without feeling fear. Giving myself a big hug, which is another thing my therapist taught me, is just how to self-soothe and be there for myself. And honestly, like rubbing your arms or your stomach or just coming back to your body. There's so many different forms of therapy where you can come back to self and feel grounded with, so that you don't have that anxious thoughts of that fear coming in and being like someone's going to take advantage of your trust again, or someone's going to cross your boundaries, or this is going to be taken from you. Like all of that can be alleviated by just trusting in yourself and having compassion in yourself and self-soothing and belonging, and just also knowing that no matter what happens to us, we all have the power of getting back up on our feet, as hard as it is in the moment and as life-changing as some things can be. Hardships come in all different shapes and sizes. I do believe strongly that we all have the capacity to show up for ourselves and push forward and pour energy into ourselves in a way that helps us grow and overcome things and heal from everything that we've been through. So be in this phase with me of showing compassion for yourself. We all deserve to feel understood and seen and belong within ourselves. The moment I feel like I'm about to give up on something, that's the moment I know that I need to keep pushing and I need to keep showing up, because that's when everything will start to move in the direction that you want to. This is your sign that if you're doing anything you feel very passionate about, give yourself compassion when you feel like you want to give up, but continue to push forward. Don't give up on your dreams. Don't give up on whatever it is. It could be big or small. Just don't give up on yourself and continue to move forward. And if I can show up for myself and self-validate and self-assure myself, so can you. So continue to persevere, continue to push forward, tap into your tenacious spirit, and have compassion for yourself first and foremost. Whenever things don't necessarily go the direction you want them to or think they're supposed to go in, because the way that everything works out is always for a reason. Right place, right time. We're always put into situations that are meant to guide us in the direction that we're supposed to go in, whether or not they feel right in the moment. I truly believe that the best way to manifest is to relinquish control of situations. It's also always the right time to start again. And if you feel like you're in a phase where you need to just leave everything behind and start over, it's always the right time to do that. There's never going to be a right time. So there's always a right time. You just have to do it. You just have to take that leap of faith. Every time I've taken a leap of faith, I've questioned if it was the right time, but nonetheless, I've done it. And I look back in hindsight and I realize that it was actually the perfect time. When you get that nudge, when you get that feeling, that's when you know that things need to shift and you need to take action. I always say that ambition without action creates anxiety. A lot of us have an ambitious soul, but we tend to allow outside factors or how people will perceive us and interpret what our intentions are get in the way of what we do and how we take action with things. But again, if you come back to self and you realize that you're leading with intention, with integrity, you know yourself to your core and you know that your purpose is to do that, go for it, because we only live once. And if we don't try, that ambition will turn into anxiety. So just like I'm choosing to give myself the same compassion I give to others, choose that for yourself too. If you're a natural empath or if you're someone who finds yourself constantly giving compassion to others but not to yourself, tap into that and figure out why that is first and foremost, and then believe that you are deserving of feeling compassion from yourself and give that compassion to yourself. So, to tie this episode all in, choose to be kind to others, but also choose to be kind to yourself. It doesn't take a lot. And it's so rewarding when you hear somebody talk about the way that you made them feel. And I will never take that for granted. But I also want to experience that for myself. So, I will choose every day to give myself the same grace and the same understanding and the same compassion that I give to others. We are the number one in our life, as we should be, and we deserve to feel heard and understood and seen. So grateful again to have a platform to share all of my inner thoughts with you guys, because I have so much going on up here. This is why we're here. Right place, right time. I love you guys. I'll see you back on episode 6.